Hello everyone. In this video, I will go over my solution to the problem named bakery and partitioning taken from today's Codeforces round. This problem is an excellent problem on dynamic programming on trees and on handling connected components in a tree formed by deleting some number of edges. So in this problem, we are basically given values to each nodes, and we also need to delete some number of edges from the nodes, at least one and at most k minus 1 edges, such that the XOR of the nodes of each connected component will have the same value. So for example, let's say that the value of n is 5 and we need to delete 5. So let's say that the value of n is 5 and we need to delete at least one and at most one edges. So we need to basically delete one edge, and it's optimal to delete the edge from 4 to 5 because, so this is the third example. So because in that case, the XOR of each of the connected components left will be equal to 2. So A5 will be equal to 2 and A2 XOR A3 XOR A1 XOR A4 will also be equal to 2, and that's why it's yes. So for the second example, you can verify that the answer is yes because we are going to remove all the edges. So each node left will have a value 3 and the XOR of each of the nodes will be 3. So that's why all the XORs will be equal. And also you can verify that for the first, third and the last example, there's no possibility for deleting edges such that the bitwise XOR of all the nodes is in each connected component is equal. So the first key observation required to solve this problem is that we need to delete either one edge or two edges. The reason for this is because, let's take the first case when we delete one edge. So when we delete one edge, we get two connected components. So for example, let's say we have the tree with 5 nodes rooted at 1 obviously, and we delete some edge from 1 to 3 for example. Then if we delete the edge from 1 to 3, then there are two connected components formed. So the first connected component contains nodes 3, 4, 5 and the second connected component contains nodes 1 and 2. And notice that the XOR of the connected components in node 1 should be equal to, so the XOR of the connected components in node 1 should be equal to the XOR of the connected components in node 2. And since these two should be equal, we know that their XOR should be 0. So XOR 1, XOR 2 will be equal to 0 by properties of XORs. And because of this, we know that the XOR of all the nodes, all the values in the node should be 0. Conversely, if the XOR of the whole tree is 0, or basically the XOR of the values of each node in the tree is 0, then consider any edge. So let's say you took a different edge, 1 to 2, and let's say that you didn't remove this edge, so keep that edge. And let's say that you just remove the edge from 1 to 2. Then the key idea is that even if you just remove the edge from 1 to 2, the connected components which will form are, the first connected component contains nodes 1, 3, 4 and 5, and the second connected component contains only node 2. Even in that case, notice that XOR of 1 XORed with XOR of 2 will be 0, and hence XOR of 1 will be equal to XOR of 2 by using basic XOR properties. So this means that we can always remove any edge from the whole tree if the XOR of all the nodes in the tree is 0. And in this way, we always satisfy the condition that by removing one edge from the tree, we can get that for the two connected components formed, the bitwise XOR of the two connected components is equal to each other. So that's the first idea. Now the second case is when we delete two edges. The reason why we choose to delete only two edges and not more than that is because if we delete more than that, then each connected component formed will have a XOR equal to each other, and we can actually merge some of those connected components into just three connected components. So we delete two edges forming three connected components, and the reason behind that is what I just mentioned, which is we can just merge some of the more than. So if we have 4 or more connected components, then we can always reduce the number of connected components by 2. For example, if we have 5 connected components, we can merge 2 of them to form 3. And if we had 4 connected components, we can again merge 2 of them to form just 2 connected components, which will fall in case 1. And when we have 5 connected components, we merge them to 3, so that will fall under case 2. So now we are dealing with case 2, where we have 3 connected components and we delete 2 edges. So let's say that this is our tree and we choose to delete the first edge. So notice that we are deleting 2 edges. That's why let's say that we chose to delete the edge from 2 to 4 as our first edge. Now notice that these triangles first of all represent the subtrees. So notice that the subtree of 4 should have a XOR. So the subtree XOR for 4 should be equal to some particular value. So let's just say x. And notice that since there are 3 connected components being formed and each of these connected components have XOR equal to x, the XOR of all the elements in the tree is also equal to x. So basically, we know that x, the value x is fixed and that's equal to the XOR of all the nodes in the tree. So keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that whenever I write subtree XOR, I mean the XOR of the nodes inside the subtree of that particular node. So keeping these details in mind, notice that once we delete the edge from 2 to 4, we also need to choose one more edge to delete. And there are 2 cases for the edges which we can delete. So the subcase 1, or basically the second edge to delete. So there are 2 cases for the second edge to delete. The second edge can either be a ancestor, so it can be an ancestor of node 4, or the edge which we delete can be a disjoint subtree which does not have anything in common with 4. So basically what this means is that the 2 cases, so for example, let's say that we chose to delete another edge 1 to 2, so then that is an ancestor of the edge 2 to 4. So that's one case, so that falls under subcase 1. And an example of subcase 2 will be this edge. So if we choose to delete that edge from 1 to 3, then that would be a disjoint subtree. So that's what I mean. So basically all the edges which we can delete fall under one of these 2 subcases. So let's try to solve the problem for each of these 2 subcases. So in the first subcase, when we delete some node, when we delete some edge which is connecting an ancestor of node 4 to one of its children, and basically, so for example, if we are deleting the edge from 2 to 1, then we basically the value of the XOR of the tree will be, the XOR of that subtree will be subtree XOR of that ancestor, and we basically need to remove the subtree XOR of 4. So subtree XOR of ancestor XORed with subtree XOR of 4, and that's going to be our resultant value for the second component. So notice that the first component has XOR equal to this, and the second component has XOR equal to this. And notice that once we fix the first 2 components, then the third component is already fixed. That's why I'm not writing that. And so that's our first case. The second case is that, or the second subcase is when we have a disjoint subtree. So let's say that the disjoint subtree had an edge from 1 to 3. Then the XOR for that disjoint subtree will just be subtree XOR of 3. So like in this example. So this means that there are 2 possibilities. So either subtree XOR of some ancestor, like XORed with subtree XOR of the node 4, is equal to the value x, or the subtree XOR of 3 is equal to the value x. So in this example, that's what we realized. And like either of these 2 conditions should be met. And If either of these two conditions are met, then the answer is true, because then we know that there's going to be two components, each of which has a XOR x, and the third component will also have a XOR x, because x is the XOR of the whole tree. And also notice that all the edges fall under one of these two subcases, so everything is covered. Now, how do we efficiently find out this? How do we efficiently compute these two subcases in the general case? That's what we'll see in the next part of this video. So generalizing this idea, let's say that we delete the edge from u to v. So notice in this case, u was 2 and v was 4. So we are just generalizing that case. So let's say that there are going to be two subcases of edges. The second edge which we can delete is going to be either an ancestor of v, or it's going to be a disjoint subtree. So if it's an ancestor of v, let's say a and c, then what we need is that the subtree XOR of that a and c XORed with subtree XOR of v should be equal to should be equal to x basically. And notice that since subtree XOR of v is x, we basically need subtree XOR of ancestor to be equal to 0. Now there are two doubts which you may have. The first one being, why do we take subtree XOR of the ancestor XORed with the subtree XOR of 4? And that's because notice that so let's say that we deleted the edge from 1 to 2. If we deleted the edge from 1 to 2, then the second component formed will basically be this. This is going to be the this is going to be the third component, and the second component will be this. And notice that the whole subtree of 2 will have a XOR equal to subtree of 2, and then we need to minus out the subtree of 4. So to minus out the subtree of 4, we basically take the inverse of XOR operation, which is XOR itself, and that's why to minus out the subtree of 4, we take XOR with the subtree of 4. So that's why, like the first case, what we were doing was valid. That's why we just need to do subtree XOR of ancestor XORed with subtree XOR of v is equal to x. And what I basically did next is, I noticed that subtree XOR of v is x, and that's why we can XOR on both sides to get subtree XOR of ancestor is 0. So that's all that I did. And in this way, we just realized that the condition reduces to subtree XOR of ancestor is 0. Now for the second subcase, where a disjoint subtree of which is disjoint with v should have a XOR equal to the required value, the XOR equal to x. In that case, we just need subtree XOR of that disjoint value. So let's just say subtree XOR of some node a should be equal to x, where a is not an ancestor of v. So this is the second case, and basically these are the two cases. And now we need to be able to efficiently pass down these two information in our DFS function. So now going more into the details of the implementation, we first compute the subtree XORs in one DFS, and in the second depth first search, we need to find out how to store these two values. So to store these two information in the second depth first search, we can use two variables. The first variable checks the first condition, and the second variable checks the second condition. Now the first variable, let's call it is ancestor. So is there an ancestor which has a subtree XOR 0? So we can just pass that down in the depth first search. So this is just passed down in the DFS, and in the normal manner along with the current node, you can just pass this information, because notice that this depends only on the ancestors of the current node. So that's why we can pass it down in the DFS each time. So that's the first thing. The second Boolean variable, which is basically going to represent the disjoint subtree, we need to pass, we can't pass that down directly, because this condition disjoint is very important. So this is a bit tricky even in the implementation, and to handle that we need to use a trick. So the trick which I'll be using is, I'll be using a global variable is subtree. So is subtree basically tells us whether there's a subtree which is disjoint from the current subtree of the node which you're exploring, and it's disjoint. So that's what is subtree stores. And to update that global variable, we update it. So we update is subtree to be 1, to be true, when there is a so basically when subtree of u is equal to the required value, because that's what we are storing. Only after we call DFS on each of we use children. So only after we call DFS of v for all children of u, then after that we can update is subtree to be true if subtree of u is x. So that I'll mention in the implementation detail in a few minutes. So if you didn't get all the details, just stay for the implementation. So in this way we update is subtree, and basically whenever we are at some node v, we need to check whether is ancestor is true, and if it is true then we and if the subtree of the current node v is equal to the x value, then we return true. Otherwise, so basically we print yes. Otherwise we need to check the second condition, and we check the second condition by basically checking if is if there is another subtree. So if is subtree is true and subtree of v is equal to true. So the two conditions which we are going to finally be checking is if is ancestor. So if is ancestor is met, and subtree of the current node is equal to the required value. So that's the first condition. Or the second condition, which is basically is subtree is true and the subtree of the current node has a XOR equal to x. So if either of these are true, we print yes. Otherwise we print no, because we realize that all the edges fall under one of these two categories. So that's basically the full idea. Now I'll show you the code implementing the same idea. So in the code, which is slightly long, I will store the variable n, which represents the number of nodes, k, which represents the number of edges. Note that k is not used that much, except for the case when k is equal to 2. So only in that case k is used, otherwise k is not used. Then I store the adjacency list. I store the variable, I store all the values of ai in the vector a. Then I store the subtree XOR of each node. I store require, or I store x to be the XOR sum, and I store is subtree to be the variable which I just mentioned. So I just mentioned that is subtree is a global variable, so that's what we'll be storing. Then the first DFS which computes the subtree XORs is the DFS1. So it computes subtree XORs of all subtrees using dynamic programming. And then the second DFS takes in the parameter u, or basically the current node. Then it takes in the parent of the current node, and it takes in is there an ancestor. So is there an ancestor is basically the variable is ancestor. So if there is an ancestor and the subtree XOR of the current node is equal to x, then we return true. And also if the subtree XOR of the current node is equal to x and there is a subtree. So if either of these two conditions are met, then we return true. So notice that the first condition, so the second one is the disjoint subtree case, and the first condition is the ancestor case, and those are the two cases. Then we update is ancestor. So update only the variable is ancestor, and don't update the variable is subtree, because we update the variable is subtree over here. So update is subtree only over here after calling DFS on all children. So only after we call DFS on all children can we update is subtree for the safety of maintaining the disjoint subtree condition. So for that reason we update is subtree only after we call all the DFS on all children, and this is the part which just calls DFS on all children. Then this is the second step for search. Then in the main method, I take in the value n and k. I just clear all the elements because I use global variables in most of the cases. I initialize XOR sum to be 0 and I compute the XOR sum of all the n elements. Then I set the required value, which is x, to be XOR sum. If the XOR sum is 0, then we can just remove any of the edges, resulting in two components with equal XOR. Otherwise, if k is 2, then we have to only remove one edge, so that's why there's no way to do that. So we print no. Otherwise, we check for the two conditions. There's some ancestor of u, so ancestor of the current node, or there's a disjoint subtree with XOR equal to x. And then we call DFS1, then we call DFS2. Notice that DFS2 returns a Boolean value, so that's why I just check if DFS2, if it's met, then we print yes, otherwise we print no. And we do this for each test case. Now I'll just submit this code to see that it gets accepted. So as you could see, my code got accepted. It gave a few compilation errors, mainly because I had initially I had used the variables I had initially used the variables rec instead of x, and I had used the variable u instead of node in the second step for search, but otherwise the main part of the logic remains the same and it easily gets accepted in 171 milliseconds. So I hope you liked this problem and my solution. If you had any doubts, do leave them in the comments down below. And if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Thank you.